In this video, we're going to show you how to install the rear brake wheel cylinder on your Hyundai Elantra located behind your rear brake drums. Using a 21mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. Now that you have your lug nuts removed, go ahead and remove the wheel and set it aside. Now with the rear wheel removed, you're going to locate these two Phillips head screws. If your vehicle has these, you're going to go ahead and remove those. You can use a screwdriver. We're going to use an impact screwdriver here to go ahead and loosen these. If you don't have them, it's not critical to the operation. Going to use our impact screwdriver here to go ahead and remove these screws. Once you remove this one here, you want to go ahead and remove the other one over there. For any reason, if these should strip out, simply use a drill. Go ahead and drill out the head of the screw, and you can remove the drum and then remove the threaded portion. And tap around the drum itself to go ahead and loosen everything up, and then slide that drum off. With the drum removed, go ahead and use some spray solvent to clean this down and get all that brake dust off. Now here we have our drum brake set up, and we have a series of springs all around here that we do need to disconnect. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by collapsing our shoes in, because our adjuster is located right up on the top here, and there's an adjuster wheel, and it looks like it's already out probably 3/4 of an inch, so we want to go ahead and compress that to make less pressure on our springs. It's going to make it easier for us to disassemble. Now you're going to go ahead and use your flathead screwdriver and you go through a hole in the wheel hub here, and we're going to pull out on this little spring tab right here. This is your adjuster tab, and there's a little gear. We're going to go ahead at the base of that wheel and pull upward, rotating that gear with that little sprocket. And by doing this here, it's actually creating our brake shoes to collapse in. I'm going to go to the lower spring here, and the hooks of the spring go inward and around the back side of our shoes. Now I have this tool here. It's a simple flathead screwdriver with a little notch in it. This is perfect for grabbing a hold of these springs. Get in there and then push those out. Now the spring is the same length on both ends, so it doesn't matter how it goes back in or the position of it. Now along the top here we have an upper spring. Now the spring itself has a longer portion of the spring on the rearward side, and it has a shorter portion of the spring on the front. This is key when you go to reassemble. There it is there. Now on the shoes themselves are the actual retainers, and right in the center right here is a pin that goes through the back side of the backing plate, and they're actually notched or keyed here. So what we need to do is grab this here. You can use a pair of needle nose pliers or whatever you have for a tool to do this. You're going to push in, this is a spring clip, You're going to push in and rotate it so that the notches or the tabs on the pin line up with the holes, and then it's going to release that spring or the spring clip. So I like to hold in on that pin on the back side. You're going to feel the head of it. And then you can go ahead and pull this out and then pull the pin out from the other side. Now you're going to start to see the shoe starting to collapse. It's coming apart, which is fine. Here is the pin. You can let this drop down. There is another spring further down below, but this isn't going to go anywhere. Up top here, I'm going to go ahead and grab your adjuster and pull this out. And here is the wheel that we were moving. Okay, you want to pay attention to how this comes out. It's going to be key how that goes back in. You can see that the notches are different. I'm going to go ahead and remove the forward shoe, doing the same thing. Go ahead and press it on this spring tab. Hold that pin. Pull that pin out. Now on the rearward shoe, you're going to go ahead and pull this down. And that spring that we were talking about is part of your parking brake assembly, the spring for the cable. So we do want to remove this cable from this. Now we have a replacement wheel cylinder right here. And on the back side, there's going to be two ports. One is going to be for the hard line to attach to. The other side is going to be for the bleeder screw. So I'm going to use a pick here. And we already identified this one here is going to be for our bleeder screw. This is where the two bolts go to secure it in place. You go ahead and take the bleeder screw that's supplied, thread that in, and we're simply going to use our 10mm wrench to just gently snug it. That's all you want to do, just gently snug it. Go ahead and remove the rubber cap here. I'm going to go ahead and set this down. This is ready to install. Now on the back side of our wheel cylinder here, we have a hard line coming through. This is 11mm fitting right here. So you're just going to use an open end wrench on that. And then down on the bottom side, there were two 10mm bolts. We're going to use our 10mm deep socket with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Go ahead and loosen that one, and then I'll loosen this one here. Now, I'm not going to remove these. I do want to loosen them up quite a bit though. Okay, with these loose, I'm going to go ahead and use my 11mm open end wrench, and we want to open this up. Now we are going to lose fluid from here. If you want to have catch can or some towels underneath to catch it, the fluid is going to come out of the line and simply run down the back side. You are going to have to clean up afterwards. Now, when doing this here, it happens pretty quick. So you'll be zipping right along when doing this. So we just unthreaded the hard line. We're going to go ahead and finish removing the bolts on the back side, securing the wheel cylinder. Now I'm going to apply some pressure on that wheel cylinder, pushing it up against the backing plate, holding it in place. spin out that last bolt. Now that we have that bolt removed, we're going to go ahead and grab that wheel cylinder, pull it straight out through the front, set that aside. Grab the new wheel cylinder. I'm going to feed that in. I'm going to go ahead and line up that hard line right now. And before I get those bolts in, I'm going to go ahead and get that hard line started. I'm going to thread that in as far as I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and snug that down gently. Just gentle. I'm not going to snug it down all the way. We just want to keep that fluid from continuously running out. Go ahead and take your bolts. And now you want to go ahead and line up that wheel cylinder and wiggle that around a little bit. Get those bolts started by hand. You want to make sure that you have that hard line just loose enough where you can go ahead and have some mobility of that wheel cylinder. You might lose a little bit of fluid, but it's not the end of the world. But take your time. Make sure you get those bolts started. Here we go. Perfect. We'll get them both started. Now that we get them started, we'll go ahead and tighten these down. Once that bottoms out, you can go ahead and snug that down pretty good. Do the same over here. Now we can snug down our hard line. Once that hard line bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Then go ahead and take some spray solvent, spray this down. And then we'll spray down the front side as well. I'm going to go ahead and spray down our backing plate. Get rid of any of that residual brake fluid. Our next step is to go ahead and bleed the wheel cylinder. How we do that is we remove the rubber cap here off our bleeder screw, and we're simply going to crack this open. And what's going to happen is the air is going to purge out through the wheel cylinder, and we're watching for air bubbles here, and then we want to see a steady stream of brake fluid coming out. Once we see that steady stream, that is basically a gravity bleed performed. All right, we have a steady stream of fluid coming out. No more air bubbles. Go ahead and close it up and snug it down. We're going to re-clean that, get rid of that brake fluid. Just so you know, brake fluid is a corrosive chemical, so you do want to make sure that you clean up everything. You don't want to leave that around laying on stuff. And go ahead and take your rubber cap once you're done with that bleed and pop it back on. Before we install our new brake shoes here, there are going to be 6 points of contact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll actually see the rub marks here. So I'm going to use a little bit of sandpaper. This is just a 120 grit sandpaper. And I want to remove any scaly rust. You want to make sure that this is smooth on each of these contacts. Now, if there's no rust, you probably don't have to clean it. Ours has a little bit on there. Once again, just using a 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm not taking any metal away. I'm just cleaning up some of the rust. And then you can use a little bit of spray solvent on a rag. And just wipe down those points. After you're done with that, We're going to go ahead and apply a thin coat of a silicone paste. You don't want to glob it on, but if you do get a chunk on there, just go ahead and smear it smoothly with your finger on there, just to make that contact point a little slick. And take your pin. You definitely want to inspect these here, make sure that they're not rusted or corroded. If they are, now's the time to go ahead and replace them. Now when inserting these through the backing plate here, you want to go ahead and clock them either 12 and 6 or 3 and 9. It's up to you how you want to do it, but it's going to help you as far as the assembly goes. So push that pin through, hold it with one finger. Line this up. I'm going to go ahead and put my shoe into the wheel cylinder at the top. Push that pin through. Go ahead and clock that accordingly. Go ahead and take your tab here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reposition my tab here to 3 and 9 so it's horizontal across. Then I'm going to take this here. I'm going to go ahead and line that up. Push that through. This is the tough part here. Kind of hold it in place. Grab your pliers. You want to pinch, push it over that pin. Now sometimes that pin doesn't want to line up, but once you get it lined up, push it through and rotate. Then it locks into that groove, and that's good. Take the parking brake cable. We need to pull back on this spring with that little washer, so it just leaves that barrel end. And this isn't as easy when using gloves. You know, slide that through. Once you get that cable end on, go ahead and release that spring. Spin that around. You want to go ahead and inspect your adjuster here. Now this is a key point. If you want to rebuild this, it's always a prime time to go ahead and do this. One side is threaded. You can unthread it. This end just pops off. And you can spray this down with some solvent. You can run it through your wire wheel machine depending if it's rusty. But you want to go ahead and prep this and then maybe put a little dab of anti-seize compound on the threads there so that this never rusts up on you again. So go ahead and do that and then we'll install it. All right, now we're going to take our adjuster. Now we've already lubed everything up. And you want to pay attention to how it goes on. Usually the outer piece here, the longer piece, is on the outside. And then we have the stepped unit right here. So I want to go ahead and feed this in. Now we can always adjust this afterwards, and sometimes you can put that adjuster in after. And we may end up doing that anyways. But now we want to go ahead and feed our pin through the back of that backing plate. And we're going to install the retainer the same way. Put that across. Line up that pin. There we go. Now when we remove these initially, both these spring tabs were facing down. The larger portion was at the bottom, so we have that just the way it was from the factory. We have our shoe engaged into the top of our piston up here. And we have our adjuster in here. Now we do want to make sure that the pads themselves or the shoes are pushed in. I think this is where having the adjuster completely collapsed helps. With the upper spring hooked up on the rearward shoe, I'm going to go ahead and push this over. I'm going to try and get this installed on the other portion over here. Now we have our upper spring lined up, and it's going to take you a few times to try and get that spring settled in there. Just go ahead and line up our brake shoes here. Gently shift those around. Now on the old forward brake shoe, we have the adjuster tab here with a spring on it. This simply just wiggles out. Little pin. Now the pin itself inserts into the same hole as the old unit. So you're going to slide that over. And that goes in right in front of the adjuster wheel. Now if you need to, you can use a pair of pliers. It might help you a little bit, just to try and get that over in the position. Work that pin in. Now we're going to take our spring that hooks on that tab there. Now, just as a note, your adjuster will have a little bit of space to hold that pin there, to hold that little bracket. It fits in between that adjuster, so it'll kind of hold it in place there. Hook up the spring. And push it down and engage that. Let's install our lower spring. The lower spring just connects the two lower portions here. I want to make sure that your brake shoes are behind this lower base plate here. So my forward one is behind it, but my rear one is not. Simply slide that out and push it behind it. Now at this point here, with all of our hardware installed, we want to go ahead and grab our brake drum and adjust the brake shoes to fit the drum. Now in order to adjust this here, the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and make sure that your brake shoes themselves are located in the correct positions. Number one, make sure that the brake shoe itself are on the pads, the contact pads at all around. You also want to pay attention to the spacing between the top of the shoe itself and the rubber boot. Make sure it's nice and even. check the perimeter all the way around, like I'm running my finger around here. And you want to make sure that they're pretty much identical. Once you have that all set, go ahead and grab that brake drum, line up the studs, and slide that on. Now right now, we have ours about halfway on, and if you notice, we can wiggle this around quite a bit. That tells me that our brake shoes are not snugly fitting on the inside of our drum. At this point here, we want to go ahead and rotate our hub to the adjuster wheel. We're going to reach this up inside, and we want to go ahead and adjust this. We're going to rotate the wheel towards you, so down towards you. And what that's going to do is that is going to expand our brake shoes, pushing them out. Now you want to do this in small increments. Make sure everything is adjusted properly. Grab that brake drum, set that on again. We still have a significant amount of play. Continue to do this until there's a minimal amount of play. If not, just snug. At this point here, just sliding the drum on, it's pretty close. There's just a little bit of wobble there. And then go ahead and set that on. Give that a turn. You want to have a small amount of resistance, just a tiny bit, and that's where ours is right now. Now at this point here, if you do have the screws here, you want to go ahead and install those. Go ahead and grab your wheel, line up those studs, get the wheel installed. We're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand. Once you have them all started, go ahead and snug them down. Torque down your lug nuts to 85 foot-pounds. You want to go ahead and do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set. I want to go ahead and start by cleaning off the perimeter of the reservoir itself, getting rid of any dust and debris. We don't want to have anything fall into the reservoir when we open it up. Now normally what you want to do is open this up, and you would use an evacuation tool to suck out as much of the fluid out of the reservoir as possible. However, this vehicle has a screen inside that you cannot remove, so simply at this point here, we're going to seal this back up. I also want to make sure that your fluid is topped off here to the max line. So at this point here, we're going to go ahead and start our brake bleeding process, starting at the right rear. Then we're going to proceed to the left front, then going to the left rear, and then ending at the right front. Now on the back side of our backing plate here, you're going to find the bleeder screw. Now our particular model vehicle has a rubber cap here. You can simply grab that, and you can pop that off normally. Now if yours doesn't have the rubber cap, that's totally fine. It does not affect the operation of the vehicle or the brakes. You're going to use a 10mm wrench here, and I'm going to use the box side, and we want to crack this open. Now once that's loose, I'm going to snug it back up just a little bit. Then I'm going to put on my drain hose here so I can capture this fluid while we're bleeding it. Now we have someone inside the vehicle, and what they're going to do is when I give them the okay, they're going to go ahead and pump up the brakes 3 to 4 times and hold the pressure. Then I'm going to go ahead and open up this bleeder screw and let the fluid come out, and we're going to watch for air bubbles, and we also want to watch for just consistency of fluid coming through here. And then once that brake pedal goes to the floor, they will inform me. We'll tighten up the bleeder screw, and we're going to repeat this process 3 to 4 times. Okay, pump it up. Pump it up. Pump it up. Now what we watched for was the initial air bubbles that were coming out of the unit itself. We're getting a steady stream of fluid coming out, and we're going to do it one more time. Okay, close that up. We're going to remove our hose here, and the person inside the vehicle can now release the brakes. Now we do recommend at this point here, if you have some spray solvent, to go ahead and clean up any residual brake fluid. So you can go ahead and wipe that up. If you happen to have that rubber cap, feel free to install that now. Now let's move to the left front wheel. Now with the left front wheel, we have the wheel turned out a little bit to go ahead and give us a little better access to the bleeder. Go ahead and repeat. Remove the rubber cap if you have it. Put your wrench on there. Just crack it free. Okay, go ahead and pump up the brakes. I'm going to watch for any air bubbles coming out. There's a little foamy there, which is indication of air on the line there. Go ahead, pump it up. Pump it. And we're going to do one more. All right. At this point here, we're going to remove our drain hose here. I'm going to spray this down a little bit of solvent. And install our cap. Next thing we want to do is we're going to go underneath the hood and we're going to top off the brake fluid. We never want that master cylinder to run low, so we're going to top that off. Then we're going to proceed to the left rear and then end with the right front. Open up the reservoir using the appropriate brake fluid. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. I'm going to install the cap. Now that our reservoir is topped off, let's go ahead and repeat the process for the last two wheels. Now that we're done bleeding the other two wheels, open up the reservoir. We're going to go ahead and top this off, just like we did earlier. Now you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle, pump up the brakes, make sure the brake pedal feels nice and solid. For any reason, if it still feels squishy, you want to go ahead and repeat the brake bleeding process one more time. Make sure that pedal feels good. Now you want to go ahead and install your wheels, torque down the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds, and then you can go for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.